Alright guys, today I just want to talk to you about bud grafting. My friend Jamie, who lives in Portugal, he grows a lot of fig varieties there. He made a video and posted it to the fig community and shared it with everybody of his bud grafting technique, and it's phenomenal. The video was really well done. This video is not going to be nearly as good as his video, but Jamie doesn't have many subscribers. And I just wanted to get this idea out there to more people, because I believe after doing his technique and learning a bud graft, it is a phenomenal graft to have in anyone's arsenal. You know, if you are doing grafting, I now strongly believe. I mean, I've always strongly believed, but now more so even than before. I think that you ought to have multiple types of grafts in your arsenal. I think it's very important. So for me, I really like the cleft graft, right? So we take our cutting here, guys, and we shave it down, just like I've done here. So, and then we take that and we would insert that in the top here of this limb, right? So we make a cut up here and then insert that in. That's the cleft graft. That's the graft that I've been sharing with you guys the most. I get about a 70% take rate. Not bad for someone who's not a professional and just doing this as a hobby. So the bud graft, though, has its advantages, and I think there's a few very obvious ones, especially if you're doing the cleft graft quite a bit. So this little cleft graft here, guys, the problem with this is that the cleft graft is kind of difficult to do, difficult to get good contact, difficult to insert when you're using a thick scion as I am and a thick rootstock as I am. So the limb here that I'm grafting to is very thick, and the cutting itself is very thick, and it just creates a little bit more trouble. It's more difficult that way. It's just a pain, right? And there's ways around it that I've kind of MacGyvered a little bit to try to get ways around that, but it doesn't matter for a bud graft what the thickness is of the rootstock. It doesn't matter what the thickness is of the scion nearly as much. You really can put the bud, by the way, this is a bud that I had taken off, and you can see I made cuts here, and this bud can go just about anywhere along the limb that you want. You could rearrange your tree to have a limb coming out right here, or a limb coming out right here. You know, you could have any number of situations or arrangements that you want. The other nice thing that I like to use here, guys, or the other nice thing about the bud graft is that, say, you know, here's a cutting that I'm using right here, and in this inch here of growth is 4 different buds. We got 1, 2, 3, and then there's a 4th right here. Okay, so that's a lot of buds in a very short distance. Now that'd be great for somebody who's rooting cuttings, but it's not great for somebody who is grafting, because the buds are so close together that when I make my shavings here, right, and say this was a little longer and it was an inch long, I would be losing 4 or 3 or 2 buds just in the process of me shaving this down, and that's just kind of a waste, right? But what I could do is I could take my knife, and I'll show you guys how I do this. So we would normally probably cut it off right here for the cleft, and then we would start making our cuts up and down here, right? But we would lose this bud. So what I'm going to do is show you guys the technique, which is very simple. We use our hand. The technique is actually quite important. I guess you could do it any way you want it, but we kind of want to make this very straight, right? See how straight this is? So that when this lies down on that limb here, it's so straight There's no bumps in it. You just get really good contact that way. There's nothing that really needs to hold it down because it's just fitting in here so snug. So what we'll do is we're going to cut towards ourselves. And you may be thinking, wow, you could really cut yourself. I have not even come close to doing that. So we'll hold our graft like this, guys. Hold our sign like this. We're going to have our thumb right on the leaf scar. See where that leaf scar is? We're going to put our thumb there, and then on the back we're going to hold it like this. And we're just going to do this. Let me just twist my wrist here to show you guys exactly how I'm holding this, because that may not be very clear. And then what we're going to do is take our knife and we're going to come towards ourselves. And the nicest and the easiest way to do this is actually we're going to hold our knife still. And we're going to twist our wrist, twist the scion, and that's all. Right? We're not even moving the knife. And we're just going to keep doing that, putting pressure on this with our thumb, and then we're eventually going to get to a point where this is happening, right? So now we have this little floppy thing here, and this is as straight as it gets, guys. Look at how straight that is. It really is. Now, this may be a little long for people's liking, so what I like to do is actually come in here and just snip this off. And in Jamie's video, which I'll link down in the description, he's so good at this that it's sickening, and he gets the perfect length every single time. And then what he does, he actually, because the next step is just to insert this bud into the spot that you want, right? So the way you do that is actually by making a little flap here. So I'll make another little flap down here. And we're going to just take our knife, come down here, and we're going to make this little flap. And that's where this bud then hangs out at. Right? So this is kind of the rubber band for the graft. See how that kind of, it's so snug and it just stays there without me doing anything? Right? So that's our rubber band in terms of the cleft graft that we would normally do. We don't need a rubber band. That's great, right? That's less work. That's less time per graft. Now the next step after us getting this in place is we're just going to use our knife and score the bark down the length and the width of the bud that we just took off of our scion. Just like that. So that's not perfect, right? That doesn't look exactly like that. But ideally, that's what you would want. And then we just fit this in here. And it's so straight, and it's not going anywhere, that this is like guaranteed good contact. Okay? It's almost guaranteed. And then the only thing left to do is to take our parafilm here and wrap this around with the parafilm. And Jamie suggests that you don't cover the bud with too much parafilm. And I also recommend that. I recommend that for even the cleft graft. You just don't want to cover the bud with too much wax. It sometimes has trouble breaking through the parafilm if you use too much of it. But we'll basically just wrap this around numerous times, in the plate, just to cover the entire thing and keep that moisture in. Because one of the biggest problems these cleft grafts have is that they dry out very quickly. I'm sorry, the bud graft. So this little bud here, guys, this can dry out in a short period of time. Versus something maybe like this, which would be the cleft graft. Look at the difference between this and this. It's just much more, this is just much more moisture in here than this little thing. I want to show you guys really quickly before I let you guys go some of the bud grafts that I've done recently, because I'm really just in love with this graft here. Here's a variety here called Stella that I'm grafting. And you can see that Stella here has been cleft grafted, and then below it, it's also been bud grafting. So we're able to kind of hedge our bets. And if this one doesn't take, maybe the bud graft will take. If the bud graft doesn't take, maybe the cleft graft will take. Here's another variety that's done the same thing, vertical long. So right above it, though, is already another variety that has taken and done so well. It's even got a fig on it here that I'll get to try before frost. And you can see that I have this variety, though, vertical long, as a cleft graft on a different tree. And for some reason, that rootstock doesn't want to take. I don't know why it is. I don't know what it is, guys. Some rootstocks just have problems, right? So instead of just banging my head against the wall and trying to get vertical long to take, you can see here, here's the cleft graft of vertical long. There's nothing wrong with the scion, guys. It's a beautiful, well-kept scion, but there may be something wrong with this rootstock. Now, the problem that I'm thinking is that we already have a limb here that is taken. We already have a limb here that is taken. This limb even has fruit on it. So the chances of the tree just suddenly going like, hey, let's put our energy towards this limb here is pretty low, right? It's pretty low. So by doing this bud graft on a different tree, maybe this tree has a little bit more energy. You know, maybe we can just get something to happen, and these two bud grafts that I had done can have a better chance of taking off, and we can preserve this variety. Now, you can see here closely that a lot of the parafilm has already kind of has been knocked off by the sun or deteriorated, or this is just kind of something that happens. So what we want to do is, if this happens after you guys are wrapping your things, your scions or your buds with parafilm, just come in here and put more parafilm over the top. You don't want to put too much on there. We also need to come in here, I haven't gotten the chance yet, but we want to come in here with tin foil like Jamie suggests, because these things do dry out, and they dry out quite easily. Let me show you guys, maybe there's one I can show you guys where it had dried out. So here we go. Here's an Izmir bud graft that I had done, and this dried out. You can see the buds no longer there. Same thing with this right here, no longer there. Same thing with Ponte Tresa, right? So these are some of the earlier ones I did. You're not going to have 100% success. You need to fail, guys, to succeed. So we need to make sure that we're protecting our grafts from the heat. I was away, and that's why a lot of these bud grafts that I had put on before I left didn't succeed. We need to get that tin foil on. So after I'm done grafting the few remaining trees I have left to graft here, you can see them. That's what I'll be doing. Now, we have a couple success stories here so far. This is a nice success story. This is White Madeira number 1. You can see that the cleft graft is on the left. That hasn't taken yet, but the bud has. So that's quite nice, right? It's a nice little hedge, as I like to call it. In the financial world, we're just reducing our risk. So increasing our chances of we're kind of reducing our risk there, guys. The other variety that I've really just been astounded by, this is one of the first bud grafts that I did. So this one's further along than any of my other success stories. But this is a rootstock here that I thought was going to die, and it never died, but it's also very thick. It died back all the way to here. It dried up, and then it started sending out suckers down here, and I'm like, oh my god, it's alive. So what did I do? I started grafting to this, but in order to cleft graft to this, it would be very difficult because of the thickness. We've talked about that. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to try the bud grafting. And of course, lo and behold, we have 2 success stories. Let me brighten that up. And you can see there, those are the 2 bud grafts. And this is quite a nice variety called Izmir. So I have 2 limbs now of Izmir. How awesome is that? And it's quite a lot of growth in such a short time. It's not bad. just as good as any cleft graft I've done. So that's kind of it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little lesson here. I've really been enjoying the Bud Graft. It's so versatile. It's so easy. Oh my God, it takes no time at all. It's just a no-brainer that I feel like everybody should have this graft in their arsenal. There's no excuse other than just you haven't been grafting for very long. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys, and that's why I'm making this video, to kind of spread the joy of grafting, but also the Bud Graft. It's just so phenomenal. So hope you guys enjoy this one again. Like I said, take care, and we'll see you guys for the next one. All right, peace.